All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world and when you're watching this. And welcome to the One Heart, One Earth Global Healing Summit for June 2020. Our summit's theme has been creating a sustainable future. My name is Lisa Gunshore. I am your host for the summit, and it's been just an absolute honor and privilege to see all of these facilitators come in with like really incredible presentations. We've had incredible presentations this whole week. If you've not yet registered for the summit, you can at oneheartoneearth.net. I have our t-shirt on. So if you've been a summit warrior and you've been part of every single presentation, we'll have 40 hours of presentations by the end of the day today, which is just phenomenal. We'd love to have you be part of our Summit Warrior Pack. And I am very honored and happy to welcome back Becky Prater. Welcome back, Becky.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. This is such a good event. Like the whole thing has been just blowing my mind. So thank you for letting me be a part of it.
Oh my gosh, you are so near and dear to us here at Buddhist Biohacker and to me personally, and I'm just so happy that you're here. And for everybody who's listening in, you can certainly share comments or questions and I'll get them to Becky. And I'm gonna let you take it away, Becky. Everybody enjoy her presentation this morning.
Thank you. All right, well, so I'm gonna spend a second just telling you who I am, because in the last couple of videos, it hasn't worked out. My computer died, so it didn't work out. So my name's Becky Prater, and I have been on sort of this spiritual path since I was about 8th grade. So I've been doing this for my entire life. And right now, I actually am an educator. So I teach at the university level, and I teach entrepreneurship, global entrepreneurship, and a lot of sustainability and how we have maintain or create sustainable companies. So this presentation today is a little, I kind of want to say it's a little bit lectury. I mean, I'm going to kind of talk about the things I tell people in my class. So, which is different from all my other presentations, which has been a little bit more of a, oh, I don't know, a little bit more about spirituality. But you know what? The truth of it is that we need spiritual people as educators, as corporate people, as business owners. So it's so important. Like that's where we can make such a big difference. So I'm a teacher. I wrote a book called Life Transforms: 6 Steps to a Future Beyond Your Imagination. And I then do life transformation coaching kind of based on the book that I wrote. And what's so cool about the Buddhist Biohacker and this whole summit and what I teach in my book is that I really work within the 1111D sort of dimension of beyond our imagination. And so we'll talk a little bit about that today. But that's what's kind of so cool about this is the idea of whatever we're limited in what our imagination can, like when you think of, what are the 5 jobs you, or what job do you want? You can think of like 5 different jobs when there's like thousands of job opportunities out there. So like the idea of creating a life for a future beyond your imagination is coming up with the must-haves in order to get the universe working in your favor to create that beyond your imagination future. All right, so I'm going to share my screen because this is one of those times when I feel like it's going to be easier for me to just take you through a PowerPoint presentation so I remember everything. And then I've got some good stuff here for you in this presentation. Okay, so we're kind of talking about saving our planet, the different levels of sustainability. And I have 7 listed. So let's see how many of those 7 we can participate in. Okay, as I said, this is my book, Life Transforms: 6 Steps to a Future Beyond Your Imagination. I also am a Reiki healer and getting more and more into removing dark energies from people. Okay, so here's the question. How did we get to this place of mass consumption? So this is where I think when I look at our world and I think, what's the big problem? We've got lots of issues that are coming up right now: prejudice, divisiveness, lack of leadership, or maybe inappropriate leadership, or leadership that we don't really understand exactly what's going on yet, but probably will turn out to be a good thing for us. Okay, so here's this idea. How do we get to this place of mass consumption? Because to me, this is where one of the biggest problems is. We don't have, we are not a place of unlimited resources. So before we got to this place like super consumerism, we actually valued durability. We bought things essential to life. Think about the people in the early 1900s that would use, reuse, repurpose out of necessity because that's what they had to do. Used only what they needed. They prepared for the future, growing, harvesting, canning, preserving. They had less things. People didn't have as much stuff. Not that they didn't have stuff, but they didn't have like houses full, storage units full that don't fit in our houses, attics, basements, full of stuff. Like it freaks me right out. I have this. A couple of years ago, I cleaned out my attic and it was like perfect, little tiny space of, important papers, different tiny little things that I had. And then my husband's aunt passed away and our attic became completely full of stuff again. I just can't handle it. Okay, also, things in the past were made from the earth to return to the earth, less or no synthetics or plastics. So this is kind of the early stages. Now imagine if we right now valued durability. We bought things essential to life that we needed, not necessarily just what we like. We buy all the stuff we want. Maybe a little bit about buying the things that we need. What if we used, reused, and repurposed all the time? What if we used only what we needed? What if we prepared for our future by growing, harvesting, canning, preserving? Cool. Wanted less stuff. Cool. Use things that were natural instead of synthetic and plastic. All these things, we were here in like the early 1900s. So I think we can get back to these places. Okay, so what happened? Like, how did we lose ourselves? Okay, you guys, the coolest thing, the grossest thing actually, is that we were programmed to do this. It happened in the late 1929 actually is when Sigmund Freud's nephew, Edward Bernays, set out to manage and alter the way crowds behave and believe, to drive behavior toward what he called consumptionism. Like this was programmed. So he, was after, it was 1929. So it was after the World War I. He said, if you can use propaganda for war, you can use it for peace. So we don't want to think, because I got my master's in like marketing. So here I'm saying propaganda is the same as advertising. Like it started off being, it shifted into more of a propaganda, which we know like the propaganda or the idea of propaganda is shifting people's mindset from one place to another to get them to do what you want them to do. Okay, so his very first experiment was called Torches of Freedom. And before the 1920s, it was improper for women to smoke. And in 1929, a group of socialites, what we now call like influencers, were hired to light up while marching in a parade, calling their cigarettes torches of freedom. And the press was alerted to these women that were going to do this, and then it was in every paper. And essentially it meant if you believed in equal rights for women and you believed in freedom and empowerment for women, then you were going to pick up the torch and smoke. And that's what everybody did. And oh my God, we've been trying to fight that battle for a long time, getting people to not smoke. But that's one guy's effort to create the desire for, and, kind of get people to smoke cigarettes. Crazy. So Bernays' goal was to shift America from a need-based culture to a desire-based culture, to sell more products for his clients. People had to be trained to want things, and man's desire must overshadow his needs. Okay, then President Hoover joined in, saying something like, consumerism is the central motor of American life. And I tried to, so most of this information came from this movie called Century of Self. You guys, it's like a 4-hour series that just will blow your mind. It's so full of information. There's a lot of information about the start of the personal growth industry. So interesting. And there's something I was looking for the other day. There's a president that said, Or somebody that said, might have been during the Eisenhower years, where he said the only way we can continue to like grow and be a valid, like the most powerful country in the world, is if we build a system of continuous growth. Well, we know now that that's not possible, or we don't, like, how can it be in the way we're growing? Okay, so passive consumers are the key to capitalism. Psychoanalysis drives consumerism. Advertising is manipulation of the masses. So this is kind of what was happening, during the early 1900s. And is it still happening? Has anything changed? Oh my gosh, I don't necessarily know if anything's changed. I feel like a lot of marketing is still directed towards getting you to need things you don't need. Okay, so continuous economic growth is not sustainable. And there are people that argue that say, oh yeah, but we just have to grow in a different way. But some people have been talking about this thing called like degrowth, that may be the only truly sustainable economic system. So Giorgio Scalise, an economic or ecological economist at the Autonomous University of Barcelona, writes in his manifesto, degrowth, it's called degrowth. If humanity is not to destroy the planet's life support systems, the global economy should slow down. Well, so it has. There's another thing called, so degrowth, or the idea that we don't have to necessarily continuously grow at this like rapid pace we've been growing. There's an alternative called green growth. So in 2018, a report by the Global Commission on the Economy and Climate declared we are in the cusp of a new economic era, one where growth is driven by the interaction between rapid technological innovation, sustainable infrastructure investment, and increased resource productivity. We can have growth that is strong, sustainable, balanced, and inclusive. And this is what's referred to as green growth. And this to me is like a beautiful presentation of how we want it to be. Might not be this way yet, but this is what we want it to be. Rapid technological innovation. We have the capability of making or of creating sustainable systems. We have the ability, and maybe right now, building infrastructure and investing in infrastructure will give people jobs. How would that be? That'd be awesome. Okay, so we have kind of a systemic design flaw in business models. And okay, it's so funny, I cannot see behind my little thing. And production processes are to be correct. Then ancient belief and mindsets regarding the earth and humankind's role on the earth must be modified. No doubt, we need to change our thinking because we have a systemic design flaw that was essentially based on Edward Bernays propaganda from the 1920s. We have to stop this. Our thinking needs to change from a programmed consumerism to a more environmentally conscious, people-based paradigm. Everybody, oh yeah, okay, so here's an idea too. I believe we as Americans feel like everybody wants to be like us. I'm not saying this is me. I'm saying this is what I believe. We have this sort of focus that everybody should want to be like us, have cars, be able to travel, have iPhones and computers and all this stuff. But the truth is, it's a good thing that they don't, because our planet is not capable of every person having a car, every person having, a smartphone, every person having a computer, every person having all these things that we have. It's just not. So we need to count ourselves fortunate that there are people that are willing to not be in that situation or have all that stuff. Here's an interesting fact. Up to 98% of all material that is used to produce a product is waste within 6 months of production. That's pretty scary. Plastic was invented in 1907, and every piece ever created is still on this earth. Yikes. Yikes. Okay, so what can we do? One thing I think is important is to avoid social shaming, because I think we're seeing a lot of that with this Black Lives Matter. A lot of, if you're not taking action, then you support the other side, that kind of thing. Like, we don't necessarily need that, but what we do need to do is ask the question, start the conversations, take action that's within your control. And so right now we're going to look at the various levels of sustainability and see how many we can participate in. Can we make it to level 7? Okay, so the first one is so important. It's the idea of a functional entity, bringing in enough cash flow to be a continuous business entity, or living a life where you can bring in enough money to sustain yourself, provide food and shelter without the support of others. And so this is like there's no point even talking about sustainability if you actually don't have a business that makes enough money to pay your bills, or you don't yourself make enough money to pay your bills. Like, who cares? We're talking right now that the Maslow's lowest level on the hierarchy of needs, the survival things, the base chakra. If you can't keep your doors open, it doesn't matter what good you do. So this is the thing. This is like a really important level 1. Level 2 is efficiency. So we all, your parents probably told you to turn off the lights when you leave the room. And, this is exactly it. Common sense solutions to reduce, reuse, recycle. Turning off lights when you're not in a room, essentially directing tangible benefits or direct tangible benefits through the awareness of inefficiency and waste. A commitment to reducing such waste and an openness to seek out new solutions on common practices. So this is like level 2, and we're all doing this. Let's be smart about, if we're waiting at right now, when you drive through the banks, you have to sit there for a while because, for a long time, the bank off, like what do you call those? Walking into the bank wasn't an option. So you have to sit in your car. Well, one of those choices, like level 2, would be turn your car off and just sit there and not let your car idle. So, things like that. Hopefully most of us are doing that. But these things, like, that's a one way you can help. But these are obvious things that are going to save you money in the long run also. The third, recycling and composting. Institute a vigorous recycling program in your business or in your house and reduce the creation of waste. So this is a cool thing. I know Denver has a composting program. So we can actually compost. We have like 3 bins, waste, recycling, and composting. And it is just so amazing how we never have room in our compost bin at the end of the week to fit everything that goes in there because, we've got grass clippings and yard waste and, food waste, other things that we might have already put down, otherwise gotten rid of in a different way. It feels so good to be able to compost something. Hey, the other thing is, this is the good news too. The systems that they have, these big industrial composting facilities, have the ability to compost things like cotton fiber. So I've been throwing my cotton scraps into that bin because it's a heat, somehow it's like a heat infused process. So it actually can deconstruct or, compost meats and actually anything that's made out of cotton, which is awesome. Okay, the 4th level is repurposing and upcycling, the use of something for a purpose other than its original intended use. We're probably all involved in this to some point. And, I always think of this as sort of your crafty space, but how fun is that? And right now we've all taken a dive into crafting because of the COVID situation and having time. But this is so great. If you have something, you can use it for something else. Oh my God. I'm looking around my room to see if I have any. Oh, hey, I'll show you one thing. Okay, so here's like a bag that is made out of old, I know you could only see it in that little corner view, but sorry. It's a bag made from banners, like those things that, what do you call those things? Billboard banners. And a friend of mine, Beth Macy, has a company making billboard banners, and they're all donated, and then she has a company that cuts them, and then they work with women who are recently out of jail in order to help sew these things. It's like called the Workshop or something, but it's the neatest company, and they do all of this upcycling and repurposing of these banners that would have ended up in a landfill. And these are indestructible. So like it'll never decompose. And I've had this thing for like 5 years. It's one of those things you're going to likely lose it at some point before it's going to be destroyed. But that's so awesome. And her whole business is based on that. I love that. Okay, so then level 5 is the no waste circular economy. So this is like zero waste effort. Um, so like in this little diagram, you see like the linear economy, you're throwing stuff out. Recycling, you're trying to use it for a couple of different things, but eventually it goes to the trash. But the circular economy is taking it out of the landfill altogether. So here's or the waste, waste environment or whatever. So Miller Coors, my husband works for an engineering company that works with Miller Coors, and they put in a system that captures the methane that they would have had as like a byproduct waste byproduct, and they take that and actually fuel their processes with that captured methane. So that's considered a circular economy. And this is happening all over the country and is awesome, awesome, awesome. However, this is what needs to happen. So this is called level 6, the restorative economy. It's consuming more pollutants than you generate. So businesses that create industrial processes that go beyond creating zero waste to actually cleaning the environment with each unit placed into the market. Oh my God, you guys, this is the way it needs to be. This is what we need. We need this. So when a business is involved in this, it has to be what we call a collateral benefit in order for it to be possible. So that collateral benefit is defined as an unintended positive consequence of a process or practice. For example, industrial process that enhance the biosphere, a community of healthy people due to air quality improvement or low unemployment by providing satisfying jobs. So it's like they're not setting out to provide satisfying jobs. They have a product or a service or whatever they do actually just naturally results in providing satisfying jobs, better air quality, or enhancing the biosphere. So I've got a couple of examples. I love this when I hear about people doing good things. So there's a company out of India called Husk Power. They offer 100% renewable energy to millions of people who live in remote rural villages of India. Husk Power creates biomass power generating microgrids using rice husks. So in a country where rice is one of the main things they eat, there is a lot of rice husk waste. In 4 years, Husk Power has produced 84 mini-powered self-sufficient plants that serve 200,000 people in one of the poorest regions of the country. What is so cool is they now have a presence in the US providing off-the-grid technology to forward-thinking Americans, like people that want to, live off the grid. In our Earth ship, Lisa, we'll have to contact Husk Power Systems and see what they can do for us. Okay, here's another one. This is amazing. So Interfloor, the world's largest manufacturer of commercial carpet, they're the ones that come in like squares, various size squares, so that they can be easily replaced. The squares can be easily replaced if there's waste, like somebody spills something or gets too worn out in certain places. It's like a modular system, so you're not rolling out millions and millions of yards of carpet. You have these chunks. Okay, so Interfloor is the world's largest manufacturer. They've committed to generating zero waste, and they've been in business since 1995. So people have been doing this for a while. Okay, so there's 2 amazing things they do. They use landfill methane emissions to power their manufacturing plants in LaGrange, Georgia. So they've worked it out with the city that they've piped the methane from the landfill to their facility. Now, this has enabled the landfill to constrict and allow for more space to put more stuff in it, which is gross, but better that than putting it somewhere else and consuming more space. Plus, they've generated so much energy that they've been able to sell that excess power back to the city, and I think it's brought them in another like $200,000 or $300,000. As a collateral benefit. Oh my gosh. All right. Also, the second thing is this. Since their inception, Interface Floor has reclaimed more than 220 million pounds of used carpet, recycling much of it into the production of its own modular carpet tiles. So in the process of harvesting old carpet, both its own and competitors' tiles and broadloom discards from their residential and commercial properties, they have created a micro industry. So they're recycling all of theirs and other people's, and then also using the methane emissions. Pretty cool. Yay, interface floor. Okay, and then my favorite, sneakers made from beach and ocean plastic. So Adidas partnered with Parlay for the Oceans and designer Stella McCartney in a line of sneakers that uses yarn made from recycled plastic waste collected from beaches and coastal towns that would have otherwise wound up in oceans. And then Sperry has a line of sneakers, slip-ons, and boat shoes made of bionic materials, what they call it, which are built from plastics recovered from marine and coastal environments also. And so, you know, while we have that big floating 1.5 mile plastic island out in the ocean, I think there are people out there trying to clean that up so that we can get rid of that waste, and they're putting it into something like sneakers, which is awesome. I mean, of course, those are never going to be destroyed. They will always be there. And we need actually, what we need to do is figure out something to do with this. Like, how can we break down this plastic? Even this, how do we break down this plastic? But I think they're working on that. I've heard that they've been working on that. So I'll add that to my presentation in the future. Okay, the last one is this. This is the thing I was thinking, because I was talking to my husband one day, because he's in engineering. You know, I told you he helped build that process that captures the methane. And so I, every once in a while, think the reason I married him is so that he could do this work for me. And I said, we need to create systems that suck the CO2 and pollution out of the air and then either clean it or put it into something. But I was thinking clean it. And then it dawned on me, that's exactly what trees do. And oh my God, I just thought that is so just amazing to think that we have a device on this planet that does that for us every day. So maybe we need to plant more trees. And then I heard about Calera Concrete. So it's a manufacturer of building materials located in Los Gatos, California. The company is one of the many that are utilizing fly ash waste and CO2 emissions from power plants in the production of masonry products and cement. The process is an environmental windfall that is projected to capture 3 times more CO2 than it produces. So I was really excited when I heard about that. The challenge is to embed these practices deeply into the fiber of all businesses, and in doing so, change the existing economic paradigm from extraction to restoration and peace. That is it. Okay, so then we have the level 7, and that's the movement beyond our imagination. Because like level 6 is what we can conceive of. This is what we know needs to happen. And you know, we have a pretty clear idea of how this can happen, and it's happening. So then, you know, we need to step into the 11D, where we need to figure out, what do we want to have happen? Let's create something that we don't even imagine yet. We don't even know anything about yet, but we do know that we need 100% clean and renewable energy. We need pure, pristine oceans abundant with marine life. We need harvesting only what we need, planting more than we reap, with the excess going to those in need, or something like that. Collaborative systems that support the environment, world, or the people and world peace. We need to define what this looks like, asking what is the highest expression, potential, or timeline for our souls at this time on this planet. And then watch for radical shifts. So what can you do? Here's one of the most important things that every time I mention this, people are like, oh my God, I didn't think of this. So you know, you have the water cycle. You've got, you know, we've all learned this: precipitation, percolation, evaporation, transpiration, condensation, and it's this thing. And you know, water never dies and never is destroyed or created. It just changes form. But what happens when it's in a plastic bottle? It's no longer a part of that water cycle. It's still there and it still exists, but it has no ability to get back into the percolation, evaporation, condensation, perspiration, or precipitation, transpiration cycle. So it's just locked there. So what you can do is empty your water bottles before you throw them away. Better yet, do not use single use plastic water bottles. But the thing about it is, you know how, like, let's just take a bottle of Windex. That Windex is made from like a whole bunch of Windex is water. And when you throw away a bottle of something like that too, you are capturing that water in that plastic that will never go away. So anything, any liquid and any plastic remains enclosed in that landfill for eternity and is no longer part of that water system. That is so important. Okay, here's some other things. Buy only what you love. Um, I say that a lot because I actually think that that's such an important thing. I used to, because I was, I spent a great deal of time staying home with my kids, and we were trying to get by on one income. And so I just am a, fanatic about clothes. And I used to think, well, if I could buy it at TJ Maxx for like under $10, I can have it. Well, I probably spent $1,000 on stupid TJ Maxx stuff in a year. Maybe not quite that much, but it felt like that. I spent so much money shopping at those off-price places because it made me feel good to buy something. And then, some things were good, most things were not good. And then at one point I decided, wow, okay, let's say I have $1,000 to spend a year. Maybe I buy 4 really cool things for 250, and then I've got like a whole precious collection of things I love so much. And that's how I've done it since. I've just decided I'm not going to get something unless I absolutely, absolutely, absolutely love it. And one of my favorites I just bought the other day. So here it is. I got this dress. Okay, let me show you. And it's from a company called Magnolia Pearl, and she's out of Austin, Texas. And her stuff is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And it's investment property, like investment clothing, something that you feel so good in that it like changes your perspective for the day. Like it changes how you present yourself. I think it's so important. And you don't necessarily have to spend a lot of money for that. You just have to make sure it's the right thing and you love it. Spend money with people doing it right, which like I think is this Magnolia Pearl. I feel like what she does is heart-based business. She's, does great product. Look for good products, sustainable businesses, and learn their story and share their story. You know how we have we can post things on Facebook and you're not necessarily getting paid to promote somebody's stuff, but why would we not do that? If there's something you love, 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 throw a shout out to them, link to something you just bought that you love. Like that's the kind of thing we need to do. When Lisa and I were talking the other day about how important it was to support each other's businesses. That's what I'm talking about. Find people that are doing great things and support their businesses. Exactly. Rather than buy off Amazon, try to buy from the producer, artist, manufacturer's website. That helps support the people, less so the system. And I know it might be so much easier and you get free shipping and it comes the next day for Amazon. But seriously, we need to support each other. We need to support the small guy. We need to really focus on people that are making a difference in our life. Okay, plan to have your stuff for a lifetime. Buy things that will last and invest in the best thing you can afford and tend to it. Imagine that. Consider fixing or changing what is broken or needs to be different. If it doesn't make your soul sing, let someone else have it because it might indeed make their soul sing. And then hold businesses accountable for their decisions. Ask what businesses are doing to be sustainable. Talk to your kids about the need for a restorative economy. Talk to your kids about this. Encourage your kids to think about ways they can help clean up the world. They are going to be the ones who are going to do this important work. I'm so sorry, young people, you are stuck with this mess. But I also think you are programmed to be able to do this and we couldn't. So you guys are going to be the ones changing things and making it happen. And lastly, keep the conversation going. We need to keep talking about this. I have this on my Instagram, Becky Prater. I do a daily action step. And my daily action step, specifically for today, was we are creating reality and our future by talking about it. And that is indeed the truth. What we are talking about is vibrating into the world and making things happen. So if you're talking about good things and positive things and hopeful things, then that's what's going to percolate out. And quite so the other way. If you're talking about fear and anger and pain and divisiveness, that's what's going to percolate out into the world. So let's keep this really good, strong conversation about saving our planet and how we can do things to make that happen. Let's keep that conversation going. All right. Well, that is my presentation. And Lisa, is there any comments or are there any questions or anything? Do you have any questions about it?
I don't see any questions on here, but there's a slight delay. So if you guys are watching, which I see some of you are, go ahead and write some questions in if you have them. We'll give you a minute. I just really love that, Becky. And, I think for me, the biggest question I have is how do we get over our guilt of realizing there's still so much to do is with our individual family. I think as I'm watching you and listening, it's like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm making better choices, but it's still not enough. And so
No. Well, yeah. And, I still throw things in the trash. And every time I do it, I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I mean, there's almost no way to not have trash. And we've got to figure out, there's got to be a solution. There's a solution out there. We just have to meet it. We
yes.
need it. And it's gonna come, and we will have, I think somebody said that there was some microbe, or they've discovered a microbe that will eat plastic.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, and if we can let something like that, like unleash like something like that into our landfills. Like I see that at some point we're going to be mining landfills for all the metals that were put in there, all the copper that was put in there because people didn't know how valuable it would be eventually. All the water, think about that. Someday we're going to have, if it gets dire, we're going to have to figure out a way to find water out of our water bottles. I mean, is that weird?
Yeah, it's a lot to think about for sure. And what's
Yeah.
your goals? My goal for 2020 is to start composting.
Yeah.
And my second goal for 2020 is that by the end of this year, I want to be free from the grocery store. That's actually like a really big goal. And it's a lot of work from what I'm gathering as I'm doing the research, but I want to be able to get everything direct from
Oh,
farmers and, so that I'm not having to go to the grocery store for anything,
yeah.
um, which is going to be a journey, I think, but one I'm willing to. I love to research, so I think it'll be good. So those are my goals. But what's your goals? Like, do you have anything in mind that with all of these things coming up and the changes with the global event that's like front of mind for you?
Well, yeah, I've got a huge, like for Denver, I've got a huge yard, and we did a lot more planting this year. Like when you go around my yard, there's something edible in almost all of the spaces. We've got grapes and raspberries and, tomatoes and all this. And I do grow a lot of tomatoes, which of course, I hate tomatoes. So I make this really good tomato soup out of these tomatoes. And so a lot of our veggies, all of our herbs, we grow right there. But I do know that there's a lot of farm share, and like there's a place called the Grow House in Denver that does that will give you a farm share box. So every week on Sunday or whatever, you get a box like for $20 or $30 that has mushrooms and eggs and whatever. I don't know if they have milk, but I have a friend who is one of my students is trying to figure out his business as a plant-based milkman to
Oh,
deliver it using recycled bottles. So he's trying to that's one of my like coolest businesses that I'm helping this guy develop right now. He's trying to figure that out because he has the system of distribution. He just has to figure out who can be the person to make the milks for him in a sustainable way in the recycled bottles. So, what you said is really a huge thing for me too. I believe buying from the source is so important, and doing the farm share and supporting these people is great. But I also want to then do some kind of volunteer work at those places so I can see how it's made and what they are doing. 'Cause that's super cool too.
yeah. Well, and I think that's our direction with OHO is really, One Heart, One Earth. We want to turn this into a nonprofit and create these communities. And I think it starts with community gardening where we can all come together and, grow our foods ourselves and understand how to do that and help support each other. So there's lots of work to do. So your presentation was great. I don't see any questions here, but thank you for everybody who's listening. And thank you so much, Becky. It was really, really good. And it's just a lot to think about. It's a lot to think about, like what's our short list of what we want to do to start living a more sustainable life.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Hey, one other thing, just that one little brief thing, because my business, actually my background is totally in fashion. I've been in fashion all these years. And, the idea of fast fashion is so destructive to our world, except that it also enables people to have jobs and pull themselves out of poverty. So it's one of the easiest ways to like step into a developing economy is to have apparel businesses, because people, I mean, then you have sweatshops, but when there's like this sweatshop and this sweatshop and this sweatshop, if this one's doing a bad job and treating you poorly, then you can go over to this one, which then builds competition, which then makes these people treat their people better, which then then you get better and better facilities, and then you end up with this economy that actually is supporting a lot of people. Like, it's a beautiful process, even though it looks rough to begin with. It helps, it provides people a living. There's a show, called like The Life of a T-Shirt. Planet Money did The Life of a T-Shirt a couple years ago, and it talks about how rough it is, like the Bangladesh factory that collapsed, and how the worst thing in the world would be not to have that business, that industry, because there's so many people whose lives are bettered because of that industry. But
Mhm.
it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to have fast fashion that is thrown away. We could still have people there making our stuff, and we actually just pay a good deal for it. And maybe we just command or somehow establish that the quality's got to be better or whatever, and have a better quality product coming from those places. And I think it just needs direction.
Mm.
It needs support and direction. But the idea of clothing, like I have this dress and I would call it handmade because it's so fantastic and it costs a lot. And it's just this beautiful piece of art. But all clothing, all over, every piece of clothing is handmade by some precious hands in this world. And we need to just be thankful. The t-shirt you have on is made by precious hands in this world. Somebody made that. And it might provide for the wages that are so little might still provide for entire family in India, because of or Bangladesh or whatever, because of you buying that t-shirt. So I don't know. It's the more the more difficult it is.
Yes, I
Overall.
agree. I agree. And there's so much with, recycling clothes and things. I mean, we could have a whole show just on that, on just the fashion and sustainability in fashion. Because I remember doing a report for school years ago that was all about, how many fabrics and dyes are getting into our earth because of what people just throw away. And to your point, at what point do we start sifting through the landfills to get water and clothes and precious metals and money and all the things that are there? I mean, it's really a huge undertaking. So lots and lots to think about for sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share it too, because it feels really good. It's neat to have a platform to be able to share this kind of information.
Well, thank you. And thank you to everyone listening. We actually have really big news in this very moment. We just got a new subscriber. And so we have hit 400 subscribers as of right now. Yay.
Yay.
600 to go to our milestone of 1,000. And that's just awesome. So yeah, that's exciting. So thank you guys so much for watching and participating. And thank you so much, Becky. We love you so much here. And I love you so much. And we'll be seeing you soon.
All right. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.